All right, hey there, welcome in. It is John Dickinson and Greg Silver. It's just Dubs here as recording another episode for KNBR, the sports leader. Number 4, Greg Silver is telling me, and those of you that later are watching this on YouTube, we appreciate you for doing so, and you'll see how Greg is constantly coaching me up. How's it going on this fine, what is this, Tuesday, as we record this in the afternoon?
It's good, man. I had a busy weekend, spending a lot of time covering those Giants games, cutting highlights. The team's looking entertaining, which is good. That's something new, but still keeping plenty of tabs on the basketball front. And this is actually the shortest margin of time we've waited between offseason Just Dubs podcasts. So good on us.
Yeah, a lot to get to just from a big picture landscape. The Celtics are in the NBA Finals. They sweep the Pacers, and it's looking like, though not official yet, and I don't want to get caught in this twice because I think we did the whole, well, it's looking like Denver when they went up 3-2. I think we recorded on that day. And then Minnesota came back after winning the first 2 and also won the final 2 of their Western Conference semifinal series to advance and take on the Mavs. But I think it's pretty safe that Dallas is going to figure out a way to win one of the next 4, which means in all likelihood, a Celtics-Mavericks NBA Finals.
Is this the Grant Williams Bowl? Is this the Kristaps Porzingis revenge series? Like, what are we labeling this one?
Well, don't forget Kyrie, because he's as hated as anybody in Boston. So that's a huge storyline as well moving forward. And yeah, Grant Williams, that's the only shame, is that Grant Williams isn't going to be playing for either team. And as they go at it, potentially not official yet in an NBA Finals and in the 2024 Finals.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll just say this right off the bat, which is that as much as I respect Minnesota's season, wild success, even if they lose in this round, Anthony Edwards, big coming out party. I think just from the wanting an entertaining finals perspective, I would like to see Dallas wrap this up either tonight in game 4 or in game 5, just because I don't want another case of last year, JD, when it was Denver making it to the finals. They swept the Lakers, and then it looked like the Heat might sweep the Celtics, but it went all the way to 7. And then you had Denver already favored from the get-go and a Heat team that was much more worn out by the time we got to the finals. It ended up just being 5 games. So I'd like to see Dallas and Boston as both rested teams, given that Boston's probably the favorites from the jump.
Well, and I didn't realize this, and I've been kind of in and out on the television broadcasts of the conference finals as they got to game 3 and game 4 with Boston, but it's never happened. There's never been 2 sweeps in the conference finals in the best of 7 format in both the East and the West, I guess. And I had the great Josh Dubow of the AP. I had him go back because I was trying to figure out as far as I could go. I was like, has there ever been 2 sweeps? And I figured they must have mentioned it on the broadcast. But like I said, I've been mute on some. I've been kind of going back and forth on others. Unfortunately, it hasn't been the most compelling set of series, some individual compelling games. But I started going back in my head the last couple of days thinking, well, has there been sweeps? And I went as far back as I could remember, and that was about 1989-90. And there hasn't been in that time frame. And finally, I did what any good researcher does. I asked Josh. And Josh was like, nope, hasn't happened in the best of 7 format. He had looked it up. He went all the way back to 57 when it wasn't the conference finals. I guess it was called the divisional finals at that point. But the series were best of 5. And so the 2 semifinal series to lead toward the championship series were both 3-0 sweeps. But you have to go back, what would that be, 67 years ago, to 1957 when it happened last. And so, yeah, just making sure I didn't shortchange any of my math there on the years that it's been. So, yeah.
That's a good nugget. That's a really good nugget. I know the Warriors and the Cavs both a couple of times were really close. They had sweeps or 5 games, but I guess they never did it at the same time, huh?
No, and it almost happened last year, as you mentioned. It looked like it was going to happen last year, but then the Celtics ran off 3 in a row before Miami eventually won Game 7. Let's get into some dubs. Look, it's Andrew Wiggins rumor week, apparently. I mean, a couple of different reports indicating the Warriors' interest in looking to potentially move Andrew Wiggins. I'll let you lay out a couple of them. Not saying anything that we haven't discussed on this podcast, though, Greg, going back to even the end of the regular season, it's not surprising to read that the Warriors are going to look to try to do everything they possibly can to at least explore whether or not they could move off of Andrew Wiggins come the end of June and the beginning of July when the league year opens.
Yeah, well, we spent some time a couple of episodes ago discussing Jarrett Allen in depth and the Cavaliers after their exit. They moved on from JB Bickerstaff. Donovan Mitchell, we think, is going to get the max extension, but it's not confirmed. And then would Darius Garland be on the move in that case? And with Andrew Wiggins, I think it was always going to be a my problem for your problem kind of trade. Someone that was not quite living up to their contract, or somebody who their respective team was a little bit unsatisfied or underwhelmed with. And it seems like Jarrett Allen was kind of reaching that category with missing some time with injuries and not being the most reliable. And he didn't have a great postseason the year before when the Cavs were the 4 seed and lost to the Knicks in 5 games. And this was one of those that was realistic both for the salary purpose and then also looking at the respective teams' needs. Jarrett Allen is one of the better rim protectors in this league. He doesn't have to be a star center on a team that has never really had a star center with this core. He is somebody that could be a primarily defensive player on a team with a lot of offensive firepower, and that's something that the Warriors could value. And then when you look at Cleveland, you brought this up very well, JD, which is that Cleveland's a team that actually doesn't really have a lot of athletic wings like an Andrew Wiggins. So it's not the most unrealistic topic to think that Wiggins and Allen could be part of some kind of swap deal. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that Wiggins is making $6 million more than Jarrett Allen. It's $26 million for Wiggins and $20 million flat for Allen in this upcoming season. So it wouldn't be just a 1-for-1 kind of deal. I don't think Cleveland would go for that in general. So there would have to be some other assets or pieces attached. And then you get into kind of the nitty-gritty of, well, do the Warriors want to even attach a young player? They seem to love both of their rookies last year. It seems like by all accounts, they really, really value holding on to Jonathan Kuminga unless they can get someone that is a true second star. And even then, that is a big swing. Moses Moody, a little bit more of a question mark, but I think they probably want to hold on to Podziemski and Trace Jackson-Davis after the seasons they just had.
Yeah, and here's the part for me that doesn't, and you laid out many of the reasons why it does make sense, Wiggins for Jarrett Allen potential swap. The reason I don't necessarily think it makes sense, despite Allen's reported, being disgruntled with the Cavs and potentially wanting out, is he's not really a sunk cost. He's not really somebody that's been, at least on the court, a problem for the Cavs, or in terms of availability, been a problem for the Cavs. And so to put it shortly, why would the Cavs want to trade a guy who's been an all-star as a big for somebody who really lately has been on the downturn, and also these last couple of years unavailable in Andrew Wiggins? So not only when you look at it from that. So that's where I think it's a little hard for me to see, where I can understand the Cavs having interest in Wiggins. I can understand the Warriors having interest in Allen. And I know it's been reported that the Warriors really had interest in Jarrett Allen at the trade deadline this past year. but I don't view that trade as problem for a problem, at least in terms of being equal. Then you factor in the money component of it, in which Wiggins makes more, which would mean that the Cavs would have to add salary to the deal. And you could almost make the case that that makes the Warriors' return for Andrew Wiggins even better when you start to look at some of the $5 to $8 million type players that the Cavs would have to include. So again, I get it, but I know they want to commit to Mobley, and I know the Warriors, I think in a perfect world, although I doubt Jonathan Kuminga is going to be Andrew Wiggins' replacement at the 3. I don't think that's going to be the case. I understand where they would view Jarrett Allen, the player, as just adding talent to the roster in an area where the Warriors may be deficient. But I will also add this. Adding Jarrett Allen, what does that do for Trayce Jackson-Davis and his ability to play? Because you don't acquire Jarrett Allen if you're the Golden State Warriors, with the idea that he's going to be somebody, that is going to be playing half the time, right? I mean, he averaged 32 minutes a game. So that right there, like, you're going and getting Jarrett Allen because you think he's playing at least 30 minutes a game. If he's playing 30 minutes a game, Greg, then Trayce Jackson-Davis is playing 15? Because you may want to have Draymond playing some center as well.
I think that's a great point. And the other thing that I'll bring up too, and not that the Warriors roster was perfect by any means, but they really had 2 players that were reliable perimeter defenders. And I know using the words reliable with Andrew Wiggins is a little bit of a contradiction when you consider his availability, but Wiggins could defend the perimeter and the other team's best guard. Gary Payton II could do it as well, but GP2 couldn't do it for more than 17 minutes and for 55 games in a season when you look at his track record on injuries. So when I think a league that is continuously shooting more and more threes, a lot more 5-out offense, Boston Celtics are a perfect prototype of a team that won over 60 games and shoots a lot of threes when you got your center and Al Horford putting them up and doing so at a successful rate sometimes, like he just made 7 in a playoff game. Well, Jarrett Allen is a really good interior defender, but then what does that get you on the perimeter when it's a league that is continuing to get better and better beyond the arc?
Yeah, you'd be losing the type of player again that you don't have enough of, basically, in Andrew Wiggins, and so you're also creating a little bit of a duplicate, I think, as it relates back to Trayce Jackson-Davis. So, look, Jarrett Allen can help the Warriors, in my opinion. I do think when you look at Wiggins' value for the Warriors being down, Jarrett Allen being somebody that still very much is a prime level player, still at only 25 years of age. I think when you look at that, that's appealing if you're the Warriors. But how do you then replace Wiggins? Because as we've talked about so many different times, Jonathan Kuminga is not the straight Andrew Wiggins replacement. If he was, that would make, I think, this whole calculus a little bit different. But I'm in believe it when I see it mode as far as them just rolling the balls out for training camp October 1st and saying, yep, Jonathan Kuminga's our new 3. He is starting at the 3 right next to Draymond Green and Jarrett Allen, basically, because that's what you would think, on paper would have the potential to be the case. I'm not buying that.
And Moses Moody is not your traditional fill-in 3 either. I mean, he's just a little bit smaller, can't quite defend out there with the same level of length. I want to see Moses Moody get more of a prominent role in this offense, but I don't think you can rely on him to be your full-time small forward.
No, definitely not. And so it's an area where the Warriors could get better, but it also potentially creates an area where the Warriors would get worse. I think that would have to be, while on paper, Would you rather have Jarrett Allen or Andrew Wiggins? I think the answer at this point is you'd rather have Jarrett Allen in a vacuum on paper. Yes. I know I don't want to get carried away with this thing, but Jarrett Allen alone without multiple other moves to smooth out and balance the roster and balance the remaining pieces, I don't think does anything significant in terms of making this Warriors team better. I would be like, all right, I like that. Now who's your three going to be? And where are you going to find wing depth? Because now you're bigger, but you don't have as much wing depth as you did potentially. So all in all, I think it's fascinating to talk about. I do think the Warriors like Jarrett Allen a lot. And as far as the multiple reports here over the last couple of days, I know there was a reporter from Forbes who had mentioned the fact that the Warriors are expected to actively shop Wiggins with the $84.7 million remaining on his contract. But again, and this was Evan Sidri of Forbes, he wrote, with the emergence of Jonathan Kuminga, Golden State will attempt to offload Wiggins for a better fit. That, to me, all due respect to him, shows somebody that hasn't actually watched how the Warriors have played this season or over the first really 3 seasons of Jonathan Kuminga's career.
Well, and I think that was a really nice point at the beginning of your last statement to bring it all together, where people might be listening thinking, okay, why are you bringing up that there's a realistic path to do a Wiggins, Allen, some kind of swap, and then list about 7 reasons why it might not be good or help the Warriors? To be clear, Jarrett Allen would be a helpful player for the Warriors, but I think the way to say it and kind of tie a bow on it is that it's a move. It's just not the move, because getting Jarrett Allen still means you have holes on your roster without Andrew Wiggins. So it would just be, okay, like, well, there's a path and it's realistic, but what are you going to do around that?
And it doesn't solve your second star problem. And it doesn't solve your second score problem. And it creates a void on the wing also. And again, I fully understand why the Warriors are looking to move Wiggins to gauge what they can get for Wiggins. And I think it's still more of an availability issue than a productivity issue, but the two end up being tied hand in hand, and Wiggins hasn't been available. And I've said it on Dubs OT. It's pretty simple as far as I'm concerned. They have to, as much as we've both been, hey, give the guy the space that he needs to work through and around the personal issues. Once you get to the offseason, you do have the right, if you're the Warriors, to look at it and say, hey, are we going to have to deal with this again this year? And if we feel like we are in terms of the ins and outs, then maybe it is best for all parties if you look to move off of the player.
Yeah, for sure. I think that we stuck up for Wiggins a lot in the personal absence, and that's not to say that we're not allowed to touch the area or it's too sensitive of it's a real issue and you can look to shop him. It was more just that, okay, like, this is how they're choosing to deal with it, and that's fine. We support it. At the end of the day, this is still a job. It is still a business, and you got to figure out what to do overall with putting those pieces together. So if getting rid of somebody who maybe isn't in the best place or maybe isn't always mentally there and sometimes physically not there, that is more than fair to have those conversations and kind of see what's out there. I think the unfortunate side of that, just for both the Warriors' sake and Wiggins' sake, is there's not going to be a lot of outside interests on him, not just because of his lack of productivity and downturn, but because, well, do you want someone that might go missing from the team? Like, other front offices might not know to full depth why Andrew Wiggins has been missing time over the last 2 seasons.
Also a good point. As far as this thing gets laid out, where did you want to go next, Greg? I'm going to kind of, as far as just other Warrior things here of the last couple of days that relate toward this dead period we're all going to be entering with a gap potentially between the conference finals and the NBA finals.
Well, I guess this is a little bit of a diversion on the topic, but I don't want too much time to go by in the episode without mentioning the passing of Bill Walton, who was involved in the Warriors organization. Of course, his son Luke was a coach and at times a fill-in head coach for Steve Kerr, also coached up in Sacramento, which is a city that you know very well and a team that you followed a lot, JD. So, yeah, just, a lot's been said about Bill Walton over the past couple of days. And I think the one thing that I would really just say is that his attitude and the kind of the personality that he showed, I think was very genuine in him. And this whole idea of being the luckiest guy in the world and living life to the fullest was not an act whatsoever. He truly was one of one. I think it was a good reminder of how to just go about life sometimes. And, 71 years, I think, is certainly still too young. And I will drop a fuck on this podcast because fuck cancer. That sucks. I wish we could have got 20 to 25 more years of the great Bill Walton. But, I think that he absolutely lived his life to the fullest. And Murph on the morning show this morning brought up a cool political cartoon where it's like heaven up in the sky and it's very tie-dye themed. And Bill Walton's up there and he's meeting John Wooden and John says, Bill, you played a hell of a game in the game of life. So I really like that as a good message.
Yeah, I that one hit me because I know he had kept a lot of the health issues that he had been going through pretty private. And I, it was one of those where I was like, whoa, you kind of expect, I think to know somebody like that is, when they pass, you kind of like to see it coming. And it floored me to see it pop up on social media and pop up on television on Monday. And yeah, I mean, you said it very well. I mean, just one of a kind. As a player, I think one of a kind. I know ahead of his time in terms of the skill and the passing. And I watched Rick Carlisle's full press conference before the game. Indiana playing Boston in the East Finals, Game 4, and he told a wonderful couple of stories about getting tickets for him and his now wife. They were dating at the time, very new dating, and getting him into a Grateful Dead show and. The time that he spent with the Celtics in the mid 80s after coming over from Portland, just unbelievable. And I watched him tell a story. I watched a clip of Bill himself telling a story of how he got the whole, basically the Celtics Hall of Fame starting lineup into a Grateful Dead show in Boston, and just the energy that was, and basically how he had to tell Jerry Garcia that, hey, I want to bring these guys to the show, but it needs to be private because they are just superstars, and how the band took care of them and they were able to watch it. And he said in the clip, everybody, he said it was him, it was Larry Bird, it was Kevin McHale, it was Dennis Johnson, Robert Parrish. And then he said the only one of that group that couldn't go was Danny Ainge because Danny Ainge's wife wouldn't let him go to the Grateful Dead show, which was pretty hilarious. They were all set to go. Basically, the whole starting lineup from that mid-'80s Celtics plus Bill, who was coming off the bench, and just what a great time they had. But the joy by which he told this story, it was about 3 minutes, was just fantastic. I obviously. A little older than you, but not. I do not remember Bill the player either. That was a little bit before my time. Even I was alive for some of it, but not for very long. And so I am more Bill the analyst, but Bill the NBA analyst. NBA on NBC. I know he's basically been a college analyst now, and that's where most people know him from now with ESPN and Dave Pasch and all of that. But NBA on NBC. He was on all of those games in the 90s and in the early 2000s. And he was always at times stating the obvious, but doing it with incredible joy. and insight. And he even did a few years where he was a member of the Kings local broadcast team. They hired him for a couple of years, I think at the end of the aughts. And, like 08, 09, 10, somewhere in there, 09, 10, 11. He did a couple of years as a TV analyst, not all the games, but a handful of games in Sacramento as well. And just a treasure, just a lover of life, as you said, and a lover of the game of basketball. So, yeah, one of the real ones, Bill Walton.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the college analyst factor because I am representing my Gauchos, hosting a regional in baseball, but I did grow up watching a lot of Pac-12 hoops as well with the California Golden Bears, and Pac-12, which is also dissipating in a horribly poetic way at a very similar time that we lost Bill Walton. So, yeah, I think that was really well said as well, and really cool to just hear all the different hosts and sports talk kind of revel over what a joy he was over the last couple of days. And he clearly touched well beyond just the basketball community. We heard it yesterday on the Giants broadcast as well. So true treasure.
He was always at the ballpark. I mean, I can't tell you, man, I saw him countless times at the ballpark on Grateful Dead night and all of that. The Giants have done that for years. And he was a part of a bunch of those and just loving and living, man. Tough one. And, heart goes out to his family. And yeah, that was one of those where my initial thought was as always is the case, but especially in this scenario was, wow, that's like too soon for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in a little pivot past that and in terms of just staying on the note of possibly cherishing something that is not quite done yet. Tim Kawakami on the latest Plus Minus podcast for the Warriors, which I still got to give its full listen, but there was some talk out there that there might be some documentary cameras in the building for the next season with the Golden State Warriors. And I think my first thought in terms of that, other than I can't wait to watch whatever this documentary is going to be, is does this possibly point more toward Klay Thompson re-signing with the Warriors and, in sync with that, the Warriors offering Klay enough money to where he can stay?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't correlate the two at all. You went somewhere with it that I really didn't. Although I was surprised, and I know Tim has talked about that in the past, and I think that the two of us have even talked about it at one point, just kind of BSing at a game or at a practice somewhere over the last few years. The fact that it has been a little strange that there hasn't been more attention paid in the moment to Steph and to Klay and Draymond and this group as one of the great trios in NBA history. And so I do find it fascinating, one, that it hadn't really been going on, or if it has, it's been really kept quiet and secret. Or maybe somebody doing the filming was somebody that also had another function. So, maybe you wouldn't totally know exactly where the footage was going. But no, surprising that it hadn't been a bigger part of things the last decade, basically. And also somewhat surprised that it's happening now. It does make me think. I didn't go the Klay Thompson route. I did go they do kind of want to memorialize the final year or two of this, whatever it winds up being. So that in and of itself is something.
Yeah, it surely is. I mean, I think, and I don't know this for sure, maybe it would have been the case no matter what. But The Last Dance, when that was released, it came at such an important time when there was a lot of turmoil going on in the country of the United States. There was a lot that was going on well beyond that with the beginning of COVID. And it gave a chance for somebody like me who didn't really live through the Michael Jordan era and those Chicago Bulls teams it gave us a great glimpse into just how legendary that was, how one of a kind that was, how the personality of Michael Jordan was something that, like, that insane drive of competitiveness and to be great really paid off, to where you have a whole list of first ballot Hall of Famers that didn't win championships because Michael Jordan was standing in their way. And I think that, today, while we're recording, is the 8-year anniversary of that Game 6 in Oklahoma City in the Western Conference Finals when the Warriors came back from 3-1. That was the one they won on the road. I know you were there in person and talked about how you've never seen a crowd go so loud to so stunned in a short period of time. I was watching that one at home, and still remains one of my favorite games that I've ever watched to this day. And when I see stuff like that, what I think is, sometimes I don't know if a lot of Warrior fans, newer or older, truly embrace how ridiculously insane their run has been in terms of the amount of times, games, and situations where they were on the rocks and they found their way to the other side.
Well, that one, I think, more than any, because there was never really a point in that season where I thought they weren't going to win the NBA championship until Kyrie hit the shot in Game 7 at Oracle to put the Cavs up 3 in the final minute of that game, and in Game 7, but it came close in OKC. Like I had seen them that season come back in so many individual games that it looked like they were cooked in, that I had the thought, are they really going to go out losing 3 games in Oklahoma City, game 3, game 4, which were both blowouts. Game 6 at times appeared as if it was going to turn into a blowout, but the Warriors were always able to do enough to hang in. And then even in the final 7-8 minutes of that game, it looked like, oh, this thing could be a wrap. And the place was going crazy. I mean, think Oracle meets Sacramento meets, pick your, Boston in a final. Like it was unbelievable, the atmosphere in that building. And it just, I've never heard a building so raucous, so joyous, and then so just heartbroken. It wasn't even quiet. It was just heartbroken, because the belief wasn't just knock the Warriors out, who had won 73 games, but it was that the Thunder with Durant and Westbrook in what proved to be their final chance together, because KD left, we're going to get over the hump and win the title. And then they were out in a blink. And then a couple of weeks later, or a month, I guess, later, KD was gone to the Warriors after the Warriors had lost to Cleveland. But none of it happens if not for Game 6 Clay. And Game 6 Clay became a thing really up until the Lakers series, which we won't talk about in 2023, when the Warriors went out, and he obviously had a really bad Game 6 in that one. But incredible to think of all of the different crazy wins that the Warriors have had over the years.
Totally. And so I think the chance to memorialize that with a documentary-like thing, and just kind of getting to see some more behind the scenes and these 3 very different personalities in Steph, Clay, and Draymond, if Clay sticks around for another year or two, just to kind of see how different they all are, but their common goal has brought them together, and they really did need all of them so many times. I mean, as great as Stephen Curry is, and as much of a one-of-a-kind defender and mastermind Draymond Green could be, you don't do this without the other Splash brother, not even close on a lot of occasions. I mean, Clay was as good as anyone at times in the postseason when it mattered most. So I think just to commemorate those 3, and hopefully still sticks around a little bit more, just for the sake of what that could kind of materialize into for something on film, because for all the frustration and the short term that we've seen across social media or even in person at times with the current state of the Golden State Warriors, I think in the end, this will be remembered as one of, if not the greatest team ever assembled. So just to get that content while it's out there, I think is really important for basketball fans.
Yeah. And look, 11 3-pointers, 41 points, game for the ages in Warriors lore. I know they didn't go on to win the championship, but when they won that game, I think everybody thought, I know the end of the Cavs series got weird, but when they won that game and survived OKC, I think everybody expected that they were obviously going to go on and win the championship. Crazy stuff happened in Game 4 against Cleveland, and no Draymond in Game 5, and we all watched Game 7. But yeah, to stave that off, even for a couple of weeks and have a chance to get to the final night of the NBA season with the 73-9 intact and potentially going down as the greatest season in NBA history. It doesn't happen if Klay Thompson doesn't go off in the midst of one of the most raucous and hostile and appreciative environments as Oklahoma City. One other thing I did want to mention, and I know we're going to wrap on this note, anything too, because I've seen a little bit of the chatter about the Celtics now in the finals, coming off of the Nuggets winning the title last year. And it looks as if the Celtics are going to play Dallas, and basically in that it's aging the 2022 championship well. Is there anything to that for you? I know it's a completely different Dallas team this year, closer in talent this year than to that of a couple of years ago, but basically Steph beat either the Celtics, who are gone on to be champions, the shell of the Denver team with Jokic that went on to be champions, and even potentially Dallas, who could at least go on to the finals, if not become champions themselves, basically beating Luka before Luka became a champion.
Well, I don't know if there's anything to it in 2024, and I do want to be fair.
Revisionist history-ish for you?
Well, and here's also the thing with Dallas. Like, that's a different team. Jalen Brunson was on the team, but he was not top 5 MVP Jalen Brunson. He was just a really good up-and-coming player. Now, what I will say, though, is that it might not mean a whole lot to me in today or the next year, but it does really put a stamp on when you have opportunities to win championships, you got to take advantage of those opportunities. And the Warriors did just that in 2022. And I do not mean to rub salt in the wounds of probably a lot who will be watching or listening to this. The 49ers have been awfully close a lot of times in the last decade, and they haven't quite gotten it done. Like, winning championships is really, really hard. And when the Warriors had the whole dynasty renewed after that season, well, Draymond Green punched his teammate, and that kind of sent the Warriors into a bit of a funk for that season. And now they're getting older. And it seemed like when they had reached the top of the mountain again, well, you don't take it for granted getting back there. So I guess that's what it really gives to me is like, hey, getting there's hard. Like, look at all the stars in the NBA. And I think when you look at the balance of talent across the league, we might not have another dynasty type of team for another decade plus coming up.
No, I think that's an excellent point. We may not. I also think, I think it is a little revisionist history to look back at. I think this Boston team in 24 is better than the team, maybe not tougher, but better in terms of talent than the team that the Warriors played. I think the Denver team that won the title was definitely better. I mean, they didn't have Murray or Michael Porter Jr. in 2022. Yes, they beat Jokic in the midst of all the MVPs and all of that. And then the Dallas team, I think, is, even if you want to do the Brunson for Kyrie swap, I think the rest of this Dallas team is much better than even the team that the Warriors faced 2 years ago. And so I understand the sentiment of, hey, but the Warriors were still the team that had the experience and had the answers to the test that maybe some of these other teams were still trying to learn. Luka, young Luka, before he, like, it to me goes down more as, the 86 Celtics beat Michael Jordan a couple of years before Michael Jordan became a champion, or the Pistons did the same thing before. It has, to me, it's more that than anything else. A title is a title is a title. I mean, I take nothing away, but I've heard a lot of that lately about how the Warriors title is aging even better. I'm not so sure I buy that based on the rationale of those three teams specifically.
No, I'm with you there. And that's why I said it really doesn't do much for me here in 2024, but it is cool to think that while other teams were up and coming, the Warriors took it while they could in 22, because you never know when you have a chance to get back there.
All right, that'll do it for this edition of Just Dubs.
I actually got one thing for you.
Okay. All right. What do you got?
I was doing some thinking about a different Bay Area team, and I just thought it'd be fun to put this out there on a podcast.
Okay.
So I've kindly reminded a lot of people who are just starting to get into women's basketball or the WNBA that the Golden State Valkyries are not going to get the number 1 pick. They're going to get 4 or 5 or some kind of expansion thing. But I do want to say this. They won't get Paige Beckers, who's likely going to be number 1 in next year's draft, unless Joe Lacob tries to shop around and trade for the number 1 pick. And I could see a world in which he might do that, because Lacob takes big swings. He knows what it's like to have a generational star and the impact that has on a community and the trajectory of a team. And to think getting rid of assets for a team that's really just getting started from the ground up seems a little weird. But I just want to put that out there very early on, because I'm not saying never in this regard for Joe Lacob.
Oh, I think they definitely could do that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Hey, we'll trade future first round picks for X. I don't think there's much that, to get that number 1 pick. It wouldn't be X, obviously. It would be to get the number 1 pick and have your shot at who you want. So no, I think I would almost expect something like that. It's just a matter of the rest of the league is also going to expect that. So here's your opportunity to hold Joe Lacob, to really get a lot out of him. Hold him for a haul.
Yeah, I'm just saying, maybe a year from now we run the tape and it was there, or maybe I just burn it,
I wouldn't be surprised if they did something. I think they're going to be extremely aggressive at being as good as they possibly can be as quickly as they possibly can be. They're no doubt about it. Yeah, I don't see them as like a 3-year. Hey, we're going to take 3 years to build like like an expansion. Like, no, I think they're going to look to be a contender immediately and do whatever it takes to do so. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. But we'll sneak a few more Valkyries takes in here over the course of the next year before they actually tip off here in the Bay Area. That'll do it. Greg. For Greg, I'm JD. We'll get this thing up on the KNBR socials here throughout the afternoon, and we'll talk to you next week. I know, Greg, you're going out of town for a bit, and then we'll have our next podcast early next week sometime, and we'll see what happens with Dallas and Minnesota and where the NBA Finals sit. We're probably going to get a Finals preview edition of this thing, because that's not starting until a week from Thursday, no matter what. So for Greg, I'm JD. We'll talk to you next week. It's Just Dubs, KNBR, the sports leader.